everyone, and welcome to another video. So today I wanted to do a little bit of a kind of quote-unquote notes to myself / vlog about playing out here in the snow. So I'm at one of my local snow parks. This is an area where a lot of snowmobilers and snow bikers come out to basically go on some trails. So I was kind of curious if it was feasible and what it would be like if we tried to ride our dirt bike. So this is my dual sport enduro kind of Yamaha XT225. It's an older bike, but you know, I have a lot of fun with it in the summer, and now I'm just kind of curious if it's feasible to ride it in the snow on some of these motorized groomed trails. So the plan of attack is to just go out, have a little bit of fun, see what it's like. I also made some little test traction devices that I'll show you in a second that I want to just test out. So again, this is just a little bit of a video showing going out, seeing if it's doable to ride a motorcycle out in the snow, and to just get some first impressions on how this goes. So again, I'm by no means an expert. This is my first time, so I just wanted to share the experience with you. So let's go ahead and let me show you these little traction devices that I made that I'm excited to test. All right, so here you go. Here are my test article. These are my little DIY 3D printed, I guess you can call them studs or traction devices or what have you. The idea is that they have a hole inside for a zip tie to go through, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to zip tie these to the tire / wheel, and we'll see how they hold up. So again, this is the before picture. As you can see, they look kind of nice. These are all printed in different materials or infill sizes. So I think these two are made out of PETG, and this is a 35% infill. This is pretty much a solid block of PETG, and then these two are PLA in the same infill percentages as these two. So the idea is, let's just go and test them and see A, how do they work in terms of adding traction in the snow, and B, how do they hold up having these different materials and different infills, just so we can hopefully try to optimize and settle on a configuration that we might want to build. So after strapping a camera to my helmet, I headed out. I started out with just the stock bike with no traction devices at all. Surprisingly, once I got onto the trails, it was actually somewhat easy to ride and maneuver the bike. Now, that being said, the first set of trails I went on were fairly well compacted snow. I mean, it was dense enough that if you were to walk on it with boots, I think you'd barely leave a footprint. This somewhat solid surface made it feasible for the rear tire to get some traction and to not sink into the snow. I was actually able to ride about a mile and even up some gentle inclines without too many problems. Now, it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies, as the bike is definitely a bit more squirrely than on drive pavement. If the front wheel gets into a rut that might have been left by another snowmobile or even just uneven underlying terrain, it had a tendency to wash out. And there were several times I had to put a foot down to keep the bike from going down, but in all, I was actually pleasantly surprised with how the bike performed on the trail. However, if the bike encountered any depth of new or softer snow, the story was significantly different. The first time I got into trouble when I was trying to turn the bike around. So to do this, I swung to the side of the shoulder of the road to make a large U-turn. The bike got into somewhat deeper snow on the edges and slowed down a bit. I then gently applied a combination of throttle and slipping the clutch to try to gently nudge it forward, and the rear wheel actually immediately started spinning and digging itself into the ground. Now, to exacerbate the problem, since this was my first time riding in the snow, I didn't have a real good feel for the bike, so I actually wasn't aware that the back wheel was spinning. Long story short, in just a few seconds, the rear tire had dug itself a good foot into the snow. In fact, here's a picture of the hole it dug. Now, this was actually deep enough that I could actually get off the bike, and it acted a bit like a kickstand and held the bike up. So, I had to dig the bike out, and as you can imagine, standing on fluffy snow while trying to wrestle a 250-pound bike out of a foot-deep rut in the snow isn't a ton of fun. So I figured now's a good time to try out my homemade traction devices, so I took a few minutes and zip-tied 4 of them to the rear wheel. Alright, so I've got them installed. As you can see right here, they're on, they're zip-tied, they're reasonably firm and well attached. Interestingly, I think it's about as tall a stud as you can get, because as you can see right there, I don't know if that's easy to see, but you can see there's just enough clearance between the stud and the bike frame there. So I think we can give this a shot. So I've got all 4 of them mounted at 90 degrees to one another, so let's go see how this works. Alright, so I don't know, this is like a halfway win, halfway fail. The win is that, if you notice, I've been riding around for about, I don't know, a mile, And this test article, this was unit 2, I think this was one that was made out of all PETG, doesn't seem to be any worse for the wear. It seems perfect, all right? Now, the only problem is these zip ties are definitely the weakest link, because all 4 of them have busted off. In fact, I lost 3 of my snow studs because they just fell off in the snow. So I guess we're gonna have to come up with a better way to attach them. Otherwise, they do seem to work in the sense that the bike is a lot less squirrely, and the rear doesn't seem to move around, and we do seem to get a little bit more traction with this. For example, right now I'm riding around with none of these, and actually it is a big pain to try to go around in the snow on the bike without any snow studs. The wheel just spins a lot. Any little hill is a problem. So I think the stock setup like this is definitely a no-go in the snow, but maybe when we add some traction, that will help. So let's go back to the drawing board, and we're going to have to revise how we design these attachments, because the zip tie is definitely not working. So in addition to learning that the zip ties don't work for securing the studs, let's talk about some other lessons learned. The main lesson that I learned is that if there's any fresh or deeper snow, right, this stock setup on the motorcycle can't handle it. Even up some mild inclines, the bike had significant trouble if the snow was softer. So the next time out, maybe what I should do is lower the tire pressure and see if this helps. The groomed flat spots are no problem, but otherwise, I really don't think this is a viable option. If you wanted to go and try this out, I'd recommend sticking close to the parking lot so you can walk back to the car and get help if you get stuck. I really wouldn't trust this configuration for any longer distance or more remote adventures. Speaking of the parking lot, it turned out that the parking lot was the most difficult and dangerous part of this entire endeavor. The entire parking lot was like a solid sheet of ice, and it was super slippery. So combine this with the fact that the bike is a little bit top heavy, and I actually dropped the bike twice, and I've got a pretty good bruise on the side of my hip to prove it. Luckily, the bike isn't super heavy, so it's easy to pick up. I guess I should say it's easy to pick up on dry pavement. Trying to pick it up on a sheet of solid ice with your feet slipping and sliding out from underneath you makes it a little bit of a fun challenge. What else? Insulated gloves. Those are important. I actually started out with my normal summer leather motorcycle gloves, and I actually had to turn around after about 15 minutes to get my insulated ski gloves because my hands were just too cold. The insulated ski gloves were no real problem. You know, I'm not using the turn signals a whole lot or any of these fine buttons or controls on the motorcycle, so having fat insulated gloves was really no issue. You can easily work the brake, the throttle, the clutch, all the major components, no problem, even with thicker gloves, and your hands stay a lot more warm and comfortable. Speaking of starting out, so I actually camped in the parking lot the night before so I could start early in the morning with this experiment, and it was actually fairly cold overnight. It was around 20-25 degrees Fahrenheit, so I was a little worried in the morning about the bike starting up after sitting all night in the cold. However, I was actually pleasantly surprised that the bike started up fairly easy in the morning. I did use a little bit of some quick start fluid, which helped, but it really wasn't too bad. So, let's see, long story short, I think, I learned a lot, namely, don't do this again without some significant upgrades. So, it's definitely doable, and it was fun, but frustrating at the same time. All in all, it was a fun outing to the mountains to play in the snow. For example, I got to see some really cool snow swirls on the road, so here's some footage from my dash cam. It was really neat to see. You see there's these flow patterns on the road that were created by a combination of, I think, car disturbances and snow drifts, and it made it look like this swirling river of snow on top of the road that you were driving through. It was actually kind of mesmerizing to watch. Alright, so there you have it, some first impressions of riding the bike out in the snow. As you saw, it was a lot of fun, although I think I got to make a couple improvements before I try this again. So, with that being said, I think it's probably a great spot to leave it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, I also hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. Surprising if you just scroll a little ways down there, click on that subscribe button. It really does help me continue making these videos, and I hope to have more videos about coming out here and playing in the snow in the future. So, until then, I think I'm going to sign off for now. Talk to you later. Bye.